This Al-Qawl Al-Jaliyy, it's a small explanation of the Summary of Obligatory Knowledge by Shaykh Abdullah. The Summary of Obligatory Knowledge is by Shaykh Abdullah. And this Al-Qawl Al-Jaliyy, it is an explanation, a small explanation of that. And we've reached where the author said, and the translator translates, they, i.e. the prophets, must be attributed with total impeccability, without exception. So here, this word total, I'm not sure what's in the Arabic now, but they are attributed with impeccability. Impeccability from what is going to be mentioned here. So I'm not sure what's total referring to. Without exception, that is, every one of those prophets has this impeccability or infallibility that we're going to mention. That is, this impeccability and infallibility is that they are protected. So that's the impeccability. It's protection. Divine protection. Al-Isma, impeccability or infallibility, is Al-Hifz, protection, divine protection. Protection from what? They are protected from ever committing blasphemy, disbelief. So they didn't translate here. Kufr. I'm not sure why. Blasphemy or disbelief, enormous sins, and despicable small sins that reflect low character. So those are three things there. They're also protected from other things, not just this, but this is very important. Like, they are also protected from lying and other things. They're protected from a slip of the tongue. The tongues never slip. But it is valid for the prophets to have other normal human conditions. Other normal human conditions means prophets get hungry, or they get married, for example, and the like, or they get sick. So they are protected from ever committing blasphemy, enormous sins, and despicable small sins that reflect low character. Here, reflect low character, that means despicable. Both of those are the same thing here. So there are two categories of small sins. Small sins that reflect low character or that have despicability, and small sins that do not reflect low character, do not have despicability. An example of a small sin that does not have despicability is eating a fruit that you were forbidden from eating from. When Adam ate from the fruit, he was forbidden to eat. That's not despicable. It doesn't reflect low character. Before and after prophethood. Before means before becoming prophets, and after prophethood means after receiving prophethood. But once they receive prophethood, they never stop being prophets. And they will be prophets in their graves, and they will be prophets on Judgment Day. So after prophethood means after they get the prophethood, after they attain the status or office of prophethood, and then they will keep that status. In other words, all the prophets are protected from falling into blasphemy. So I'm not sure why the translator is avoiding blasphemy here. Or disbelief. And from falling into major sins. Any major sin. Every major sin. It's impossible. Or engaging in minor sins of an abject or mean nature. Yes. So now you got so many synonyms. Despicable. Reflects low character. Abject. Mean. Such as stealing a single grape before prophethood or afterwards. Here, this example of stealing a grape, it may be you heard me tell you before. I remember when I was a child, I saw a man in the supermarket, a man I knew. He stole a mushroom, a single mushroom, and he chewed on it. I wasn't even a Muslim. And I never forgot by the will of Allah. That's what I'm telling you now, obviously. I didn't forget that. But even throughout my life, from time to time, I would recall when the man stole the mushroom. And I said to myself, how much would a single mushroom cost? If he just went outside and looked on the sidewalk, he would find some pennies and then he could buy that mushroom. So then when I became a Muslim, and then I learned that a prophet wouldn't even steal a single grape because that's low, then I could relate to that very well, because I remember that it bothered me that he stole that mushroom like that. Because you know how when you're in the supermarket, they have the stuff in the open, you can pick it up and put as many of them in the bag as you want, or like that. It is possible for them to commit other small sins that do not indicate low character. That's the strong saying, that this is possible. And in fact, occurred, not merely possible, but actually happened. That's the strong saying. It's not weak saying. So don't be shaken by anyone who tries to say something else. The weaker saying is that prophets don't commit any sin whatsoever, that it's impossible altogether. They would commit any sin whatsoever. The stronger saying is that it is possible for them to commit other small sins, yani small sins not of that type, small sins that do not indicate low character, and that actually happened too, just as what happened to our master Adam with a capital A. In the Quran, what Adam did was called ma'asiyah, disobedience. And in the hadith, it was called khati'ah. That would mean a mistake. It would mean sin, though. It doesn't mean merely a mistake. It means a sinful mistake. Khati'ah means sin. And he repented, of course, like the author says. They are, however, immediately guided to repent if they commit such sins, before others of their communities imitate them in that small sin. Period. Or else, so if you want to start this next sentence with or else, it's going to be a big O here. Or you could use another word. Otherwise, comma. So it's a big O either, whichever way you want. Or else they would follow the prophets in this minor sin because they are models for the people. And that was the argument for the scholars who said that prophets don't commit any sin. They said, had a prophet possibly committed any kind of sin whatsoever, then because they are the role models for the people, then the people would take that action of a prophet and then do it as obedience, as a sunnah of that prophet. And then a sin would turn into obedience. They said this is impossible. So then the prophets are impeccable. They are protected from committing any sin whatsoever. So the answer of the majority, and it is the majority that took the stronger saying, and that's known. Even those who took the weaker saying say this is different from what the majority said, like Judge Iyal, the Maliki. He took the weaker saying and said, this is not the saying of the majority. What the majority said was, this what you fear, that if the prophet would commit even a small sin that does not display low character, still his people would take that as an act of obedience since he's the prophet, and then a sin would become an obedience, a sunnah. This what you fear, the majority said to the minority. You don't have to fear that because the prophets would repent immediately before anyone follows them. So that's their answer to what the minority said. Here, they are, however, immediately guided to repent if they commit such sins before others of their communities imitate them in that small sin. That's the answer of the majority to the minority who said prophets don't commit any sin whatsoever, or else their followers would take that sin as a sunnah. Hence, Prophethood was not bestowed upon the 10 brothers of Prophet Joseph, who, excluding Binyamin, committed the mean deeds mentioned in the Quran. And also could be said that, yani, if you put it here one time, for example, Yusuf, then it should be enough. Someone could argue that. And you don't have to keep putting it again and again. So, prophethood was not bestowed because of this, yani. Hence, yani, because of this, prophethood was not bestowed upon the 10 brothers of Joseph, who, excluding Binyamin, committed the mean deeds mentioned in the Quran, hitting Yusuf, yani beating him. I'm not sure where is that mentioned in the Quran that they hit Yusuf. It is mentioned in the tafsirs of the Quran, the commentaries of the scholars, that they hit Yusuf, they beat him up. But I don't know which ayah is in the Quran that says they hit Yusuf. And throwing him in a well and ascribing their father, Prophet Yaqub, with foolishness, which is kufr. And this is a point of contention between us and some people. They said, how could you make takfir on the brothers of Yusuf when they said about their father, Inna abana lafi dalalin mubin. Indeed, our father is in clear misguidance. He is in clear straying. This is the foolishness that's mentioned here. The word put here is foolishness. The Arabic word in the Quran is dalal, being lost. So we said that because he's a prophet, you can't say that to a prophet, that's kufr. Then they will say no, and they will bring you some statements of scholars who said what they meant was he loved Yusuf so much. They didn't mean he was a fool. And there's a number of things that you could say to that. Among those things is that it's not binding on us to make a ta'wil here. We're not bound to explain the dalal here by other than what appears. Yes, whatever a prophet is protected from, he is protected from it before and after prophethood. That's correct. We say here, among what can be said here is, it's not binding on us to explain dalal here by other than what appears. To say dalal here means love, mahabbah. And the context doesn't support that. That it merely means love, merely. And that there's no disrespect here. The context doesn't support that there's no disrespect in their statement to their father. That's why Prophet Yaqub said to them, Lawla an tufannidun. Had you not deemed me senile, you would believe me. Said that to his sons. So this is kufr. I'm not going to go far here. Blasphemy. But the translator, though, he did use the word disbelief previously, or unbelief, and maybe the word blasphemy previously. So I'm not sure why it's being avoided here. Benjamin, he did not partake in what his brothers committed. They also lied. That's in the Quran. They lied to their father. And they conspired. That's in the Quran. The descendants of Prophet Yaqub, referred to in the Quran as the Asbab, who received the revelation and were chosen for prophethood, are not those who hurt Yusuf. Period. Rather, it's a big R here, the Asbab are the descendants of Yusuf's brothers, because some of those who descended from them some people who were descended from those brothers of Yusuf were granted prophethood. So up here, by the way, before I get far, this can be a new paragraph. Should be. Here, that should start a new paragraph. The word sibt in the Arabic language means the offspring of a person, whether a direct child or the offspring of their child, meaning the child or the grandchild is the sibt. That's the singular of the word asbat. So that could be clarified there. Maybe if someone doesn't know Arabic, he doesn't know where the sentence come from. This is assuming here, the way this is put in the English without commentary, is assuming that a person can connect the word asbalt and the word sibt. So the asbalt, they were a league of prophets who were from the children of Israel. Most of the prophets were from the children of Israel. Israel is Jacob himself. Israel is a person. Jacob himself, alayhi salatu wassalam. Israel. So now we're at the chapter of apostasy. Any question?
Shaykh, can you explain that word again? Masiyah?
Ma'asiyah, yeah. Ma'asiyah. Ma'asiyah means disobedience. It means here sin. Yani, in a literal sense, means disobedience. You could do ma'asiyah to your parent, for example. It doesn't mean sin like that. If you said, my son asani, you'd be saying he disobeyed me. But if you say asaitullah, you're saying I sinned. I disobeyed Allah means I sinned. And that's what's mentioned in the Quran about Adam. Then in the hadith, the word is khati'ah. Khati'ah. That means sin also, but it has the connotation of a mistake. But it means sin. It clearly means sin. You said, did those brothers become Muslim after and repent from what they did to their father and their brother Yusuf? Yes, they did. They did repent. And the people who argued with us here, if you ask them, were the brothers of Yusuf impeccable? They'll say no. So tell them, what's your problem then? If someone commits kufr and then he committed kufr, what are you going to do? It's the impeccable one that you're going to find a way that this is to explain it. This can't be. This can't be what it looks like. Also, once I had a long discussion with a person. He said to me, "You made takfir, not me, but some of the brothers, on Imam so and so and Imam so and so." That's his claim. I'm not saying they did or they didn't, but this is what he said. Said, you made takfir on Shaykh so and so and Shaykh so and so. So I said to him, are they impeccable? Those ones, are they impeccable? He said, no. I told him, so what's the problem? What's your issue here? Was the thing that somebody made takfir for him kufr or wasn't kufr? If it was kufr, you're going to say he committed kufr. The prophets are impeccable from kufr. The angels are impeccable from kufr. And the walis, the saints, are impeccable from kufr. If someone is not any of those, he's not impeccable from kufr. It should be clear for you as I'm talking to you. I'm not saying go and make takfir on somebody. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, it can't be somebody's argument that he's fulan, you made takfir on him merely like that. So what's the issue? Is the issue, did he liken Allah to the creations? That's kufr. Did he legalize a sin? That's kufr, for example. So kufr is known. The rules of kufr are known. The cases, the examples of kufr are known. If that happened from somebody who's not impeccable, then what you gonna do? Turn a blind eye and say it's not kufr because he's fulan? The author says apostasy. Now, subhanAllah, we just read so much apostasy for last months in our different lessons. Now we're gonna talk about this again, mashallah. And I ask Allah to make it beneficial. Amin. After the author finished discussing the essentials of belief, He, may Allah have mercy upon him, started talking about apostasy. It is defined as interrupting Islam by a kufr saying, action, or belief. So here, Islam has one A, doesn't have two A's, doesn't have an underline. Could be argued that this word now is in English language, so you can just spell it that way. Maybe. But consistency is better. It has two A's here. Wherever there was an extended vowel, there were two A's. Asbab, for example. Allah. Because the name Allah also is standard in English. A-L-L-A-H, but they put two A's. So consistency is better. It's not wrong, it's just not consistent. By a kufr saying, action, or belief. So still here, we're avoiding the English word blasphemy. So there should be, if there's a reason for that, I say, there should be a footnote or something to clarify. Why is the word blasphemy being avoided here? Because fundamentally, this book has been rendered into English for people who don't know Arabic. So you're going to put English words there so that they understand what you're saying. Section 2. It is obligatory upon every Muslim who is accountable. We could say it is obligatory upon every accountable Muslim to preserve one's faith in Islam and protect it against or from, protected from whatever invalidates, abolishes, and interrupts it, namely apostasy. Period. We seek refuge with Allah from it because kufr, blasphemy, disbelief, is the most grievous sin. It is the sin that Allah does not forgive if the person dies in that state. And He forgives whatever is less than that for whomever He wills. This sentence is taken from the ayah. Inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bih. Indeed, Allah does not forgive the association of partners with Him. وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. And He forgives whatever is less than that for whomever He wills. Al-Hafiz, that's the top hadith scholar, Yahya ibn Sharaf an-Nawawi, who died in the year 676, and others said apostasy is the most abhorrent type of blasphemy, yani ugliest, most heinous, meaning it is the ugliest, most heinous type of blasphemy, in the sense that it erases all the good deeds and that it is a conversion from truth to falsehood, but not in the sense that it is the worst blasphemy in all situations. Yes. That's like how you could say about something that someone did, that's the worst thing you could have done. And it doesn't mean that it is the absolute worst thing you could have done. You could have done something worse in an absolute sense, but in a relative sense, you say, that's the worst thing you could have done. So that's what it means to say apostasy is the most heinous blasphemy, not in the absolute sense, in a relative sense, with the meaning that it makes you lose all your good deeds, and with the meaning that it is exiting the truth and entering into falsehood. And also with the meaning that the rules pertaining to the apostate are stricter than the rules pertaining to the original disbeliever. Because the original disbeliever is not executed merely for being a disbeliever, while the apostate is to be executed by the proper authorities for his apostasy. And the original disbeliever, the caliph can make a treaty with him, but the apostate, the caliph cannot make a treaty with him. And the original disbeliever can get married and he can inherit, and the apostate cannot get married and he cannot inherit. And if he was married, the apostasy will ruin his marriage. Whereas an original disbeliever, if he were married and then he committed disbelief atop his present disbelief, he's still married. But the actual blasphemy that caused that Muslim to become an apostate might be a type of blasphemy that's not the worst type absolutely. Like, if what made him go out of Islam was that he insulted God, that's blasphemy, but that's not worse than denying God's existence. So the blasphemy of denying God's existence is worse than the blasphemy of insulting God. That's why we're saying it doesn't mean most heinous in an absolute sense. Here, new paragraph. In this age, it has become common for the ignorant people to speak carelessly to the extent that some people utter blasphemous words which take them out of the religion of Islam, without them even deeming such blasphemous words sinful, let alone deeming them blasphemy. They don't deem those words sinful, let alone deeming them blasphemy. So they think that they are still Muslims. This fulfills what the Prophet ﷺ foretold. Yani, yes. And confirms the truthfulness of the Prophet's saying, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ لَا يَرَى بِهَا بَأْسًا يَهْوِي بِهَا فِي النَّارِ 70 خَرِيفًا. This means a person may utter an expression of blasphemy that he perceives harmless. However, it results in his falling the depth of 70 years into hellfire. Okay. So here, a person may utter an expression of blasphemy that he perceives harmless. So just want to point out some things to you here. إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ Al-Kalimah. So the Arabic word is definite. The word. He will utter the word. So the way it's translated here and also in other translations of summary is a word or an expression that they translated it indefinitely. So the word means the word of blasphemy in particular. The word. La yara biha ba'sa, not seeing anything wrong with it. So here, not seeing anything wrong with it. The sentence itself is in a negative context, means saying he does not see. He does not see. The way it's worded here in the translation is, he perceives it harmless. So the translation makes it affirmative. It's like saying he sees it harmless. The Arabic is saying he does not see it harmful. Yahwi biha fi nari 70 kharifa. However, it results in his falling the depth of 70 years into hellfire. Also, 70 kharifa. Kharif is autumn, the season of autumn, one of the 4 seasons of the year. So the Arabic is saying he falls into the fire 70 autumns. So the translation skips that for the implication. 70 years. I think the other translations do like that also. But subhanAllah, as a person who Arabic's not my first language, I remember learning, and I used to always wish that the Arabic was more precisely translated. And then as I learned Arabic, and then I could hear the teachers, you know how we do Arabic, English, Arabic, English. As I was learning more and more Arabic, I could see what's being skipped in the translation. I'm not blaming anyone here. I'm just sharing with you my experience. Because I know why in most of the cases they're doing that. First of all, a lot of times they weren't very strong in English so that they would be more precise. Second of all, sometimes it takes effort that they're not trying to exert while they're teaching. It takes a mental effort to be trying to get all those words so literal. And so they are taking it easy on themselves and giving you the meaning, the correct meaning. But I used to feel like, oh, I wish for myself, before I knew, then I wished that it was more precise for me. Then after I knew and I could understand, then I wished it was more precise for others because I knew I could understand and I saw what was missing, what was lacking. So that's why I go through some of this with you here. That's what I would like for myself. You do for the Muslim what you would like for yourself. May Allah enable us. Ameen. This falling distance of 70 years leads to the bottom of hellfire. So if one wanted to put 70 autumns into the translation, he'll say 70 autumns and then say which means 70 years, or in a footnote, which means 70 years because autumn only comes once per year. This falling distance of 70 autumns, or 70 years, leads to the bottom of hellfire, which is exclusive to those who are disbelievers. I mean, what be cool. So here now, looks like the translator is going to avoid the disbeliever or unbeliever, but he said that before, up above. If there's a reason for avoiding that, then let there be a footnote or something. And be mindful that, yeah, like we said already, maybe a person doesn't understand these words. It's the same reason for saying 70 years instead of 70 autumns, right? So, because you want to make sure it's clear for the person. This falling distance of 70 years leads to the bottom of hellfire, which is exclusive to those who are kafir, disbeliever, non-Muslim, as indicated by the religious texts. Yani, we're saying, what's the significance of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam saying that he will fall for 70 autumns? Means he goes to the bottom of hell. What's the proof for that? Some religious texts. Now, we'll just skip them for brevity. We mentioned them in other lessons of ours, so review your lessons. This hadith was related by At-Tirmidhi in his Jami'. So here, mentioned before, as proper name started with a small letter. I wouldn't do it myself. A lot of people do it. Many, maybe most people do it. In his Jami', At-Tirmidhi narrated this hadith in his Jami'. That's his book. That's called famously Sunan At-Tirmidhi. And he classified it as a Hasan hadith. It says well authenticated hadith. I'd say a fair hadith. You say well authenticated for Hasan. I'm not sure what you're going to say for Sahih. So Sahih, authentic hadith. Hasan, fair hadith. Yani it's less than Sahih, but it's still usable. The two Shaykhs, Al-Bukhari and Muslim, related a hadith with a similar meaning. Small h here. The verbatim narration of the two Shaykhs is إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مَا يَتَبَيَّنُ فِيهَا يَزِلُّ بِهَا فِي النَّارِ أَبْعَدَ مِمَّا بَيْنَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. A person may utter an expression that he does not take heed of its consequence, by which he falls into hellfire, a depth which is farther than what is between east and west. So, innal abida, indeed the slave, they said person, the slave, la yatakallamu bil kalima, he will, it says he may utter an expression. The Arabic saying, he will indeed say the word. He will indeed speak the word. لا يتكلم, this lam is for emphasis. لا يتكلم بالكلمة, he will indeed speak the word of blasphemy. ما يتبين فيها, without taking heed of its consequence. Okay. يزل بها في النار, by which he falls into hellfire. Yani, by that word, he slips into the fire. أبعد مما بين المشرق والمغرب, farther than what is between east and west. The hadith of At-Tirmidhi explains this hadith, because it mentions the distance in particular. This hadith stands as evidence that committing blasphemy is not conditional on having learned the judgment of the uttered blasphemous expressions. You don't have to know the judgment that this is blasphemy in order for you to fall into blasphemy. Because the Prophet ﷺ judged the person who said the blasphemous expression with torture at the bottom of hell, even though he did not know the judgment of such an expression. This is clearly displayed in their in his or one's misperception that this expression is harmless, as proven in the before mentioned hadith. Thus, it is known that whoever says blasphemous expressions while understanding their meanings becomes a blasphemer, whether or not he knows that the expressions are judged as blasphemy. So the word kufr is being used here sometimes as a noun, sometimes as an adjective. The noun is going to be blasphemy with a Y. The adjective is going to be blasphemous, O-U-S. So blasphemous in Arabic is kufri with a ya on the end. Kufri, blasphemous. Nor is committing blasphemy contingent on having liked what was said. It doesn't depend on liking what was said. Rather, one becomes a blasphemer for saying the blasphemous statement, whether he liked what was said or not. Merely by the fact that he said it is sufficient. And so here, if he's not someone who's impeccable, if he were impeccable, he wouldn't have said blasphemy in the first place, unless he lost his mind. Then he's still excused for losing his mind. So if he's not impeccable, then don't bring into the issue his name. But he's fulan. Okay. Nor is committing kufr contingent on having liked what was said, or having believed in their meaning, the meaning of the blasphemous expressions, or not. Whoever says blasphemy intentionally becomes a blasphemer even if he does not believe in the meaning of the words that were uttered. It's enough just to say them. That's a consistent rule. These rules of blasphemy that we're saying now, it's the same when it comes to marriage and divorce and confessing and the like. So someone said to his wife, "You are divorced," then she's divorced. Doesn't matter if he was playing or he wasn't, or he liked it when he said it or he didn't like it. Or someone went to the judge and said, "I owe Fulan $1 million." Then the judge will make him pay. And then if he said after that, "I was only joking," the judge will still make him pay. It says, whoever says blasphemy intentionally becomes a blasphemer, even if they do not believe, even if he does not believe in the meaning of the words that were uttered. Like if someone says, "Oh, Son of God," without believing that God has a son, then this person would be judged as a blasphemer. May Allah protect us from such statements. Amin. The Egyptian Sayyid Sabiq dissented from what was previously mentioned. He diverged from the truth, as he falsely stated in a book that he authored named Fiqh Sunnah. He said, a Muslim is not regarded out of the fold of Islam, nor is he judged with apostasy unless he feels pleased with unbelief and his heart has accepted it and he actually embraces a religion other than Islam. That statement is blasphemy itself. He contradicts the Prophet here, alayhi salatu wassalam. The aforementioned hadith related by At-Tirmidhi suffices in refuting him. Likewise, not being angry is not a condition for one to fall into blasphemy, as Hafiz an-Nawawi indicated. Could stop the sentence there, period. When dealing with translation, I suggest that one makes a new sentence wherever he can, because the Arabic sentences can keep going. And Nawawi said, if a man were angry with his child or a young slave and hit him severely, then another man said to him, how could you beat him this sinful, severe beating? Are you not a Muslim? And to that his deliberate answer, i.e., it was not a slip of the tongue. So intentionally he said, his deliberate answer was, no, I am not a Muslim. He becomes a non-Muslim because he willfully said a blasphemous expression. This judgment, that the absence of anger is not a condition for one to be judged as a disbeliever, was mentioned by other than an-Nawawi, such as Hanafiya scholars and other scholars of different schools of thought. This one said schools of thought. Some people take the wrong meaning out of that, though, because to them, school of thought means their personal opinion. I'd say school of Islamic law or school of law. Wallahu a'lam. Let's stop there.